Hey there, and welcome back to Lingo Dots Podcasts. Today, we're diving into an exciting story from the past. Have you ever dreamed of leaving home to explore the world? Well, that's exactly what one young boy wanted to do many years ago.
Our story takes us to Genoa, a busy port city by the sea, full of ships and sailors talking about far-off lands. This young boy, who we know today as Christopher Columbus, wanted to see these places for himself. He didn't know it then, but his journey would change history forever. Ready to set sail?
So, let's picture Genoa, Columbus's hometown. Genoa was busy, full of people working, trading, and talking. Ships arrived from far places, bringing goods, spices, and exciting stories. Sailors often spoke about the things they saw on their travels. They talked about beautiful lands, strange animals, and foods that the people of Genoa had never tasted.
Young Columbus loved listening to these stories. He dreamed of being on a ship and going to these places himself. Many boys around him felt the same way, hoping to work on a ship one day. Some even helped clean the ships or carried heavy bags to earn a little money.
Columbus was just a young boy from a simple family. His father worked as a wool weaver, making cloth. But Columbus didn't want to weave cloth. He wanted to travel. The sea, to him, was a door to adventure and freedom. As Columbus grew older, his dream to explore became stronger. He knew he needed more skills if he wanted to be a real sailor. So, Columbus moved to Lisbon, a city in Portugal. Lisbon was perfect for someone like Columbus. It was full of sailors, shipbuilders, and people who made maps.
In Lisbon, Columbus met his brother Bartholomew. Bartholomew also loved the idea of exploring the world. The two brothers spent a lot of time together, learning about maps and routes across the sea. They practiced drawing maps, marking where oceans, rivers, and countries were. This skill was very important because sailors needed to know where they were going.
Columbus learned other things too. He studied the stars and tools like the astrolabe. With these tools, sailors could find their direction. Columbus was getting closer to becoming a real explorer, ready for bigger adventures. While Columbus learned about the sea, he also heard people talk about a place called Asia. Asia was famous for its silk, spices, and gold. Many people in Europe wanted these things, but getting to Asia was difficult. The main paths were long, full of dangers, and went through mountains and deserts.
Columbus started to think, what if there was a faster way? He believed that by sailing west across the ocean, he could reach Asia. Most people thought this was a crazy idea. The ocean was huge, and they worried there was no end to it. But Columbus felt sure his idea would work.
This idea became his biggest dream. He wanted to sail west, find this faster route, and make a name for himself. Columbus knew that if he could find this path, he could change the world and help Europe get rich with Asian goods. With his big idea in mind, Columbus went to the King of Portugal. He told the king about his plan to reach Asia by sailing west. Columbus asked the king to give him ships and money for the trip. But the king's advisors were not convinced. They thought Columbus's idea was too risky, maybe even impossible. They believed that if Columbus tried, he would fail and never come back. So the King of Portugal said no.
Columbus felt disappointed, but he didn't give up. He believed strongly in his idea. So he decided to go to Spain to ask for support. In Spain, Columbus met Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand. Spain wanted to find new trade routes, so Columbus hoped they would be interested. The Queen listened carefully to Columbus's plan, and she liked the idea. But it was a hard decision.
Spain's advisors also thought it was risky. They worried that it might be a waste of money. Columbus waited, hoping for a good answer. It took years, but finally, Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand agreed. They promised Columbus 3 ships and money for the journey. Columbus was thrilled. Now he could start preparing for his great adventure. With Spain's support, Columbus was ready to begin his journey. He prepared 3 ships, the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. Columbus chose a strong crew with experienced sailors, cooks, and even a doctor. On August 3, 1492, they left Spain, excited but also nervous about the unknown.
Life at sea was difficult. The sailors faced storms, high waves, and days where they saw nothing but water. Sometimes the sea was calm, and other days the winds were so strong that it was hard to control the ships. Many of the men grew scared, worrying they would never find land. Some even wanted to turn back. But Columbus kept encouraging them, saying that land was close and they had to keep going.
To guide them, Columbus used the stars and the astrolabe. Every night he checked their position. He believed that by looking at the stars, he could find their way. Days turned into weeks, and still no land appeared. The sailors began to lose hope. Some thought they were lost forever in the endless ocean.
Then, after more than a month, they started to see signs. Birds flying and pieces of grass in the water. This gave the men hope. Finally, on October 11th, a light was spotted in the distance. The next morning, they saw land. The sailors cheered, shouting, "Land ahoy!" After so long, they had reached what Columbus believed was Asia. The journey had been hard, but they were all thrilled to see land again.
When Columbus and his crew stepped onto the land, they were filled with excitement. They had no idea where they were, but Columbus believed they had reached Asia. As they walked around, they saw the beautiful beaches, tall palm trees, and clear blue water. It was very different from home.
Soon, Columbus and his men met the people who lived on the island. These people were friendly and curious about the strangers. Columbus called them Indians because he thought he had arrived in the Indies, a part of Asia. The local people, who were from different tribes like the Taino, Lucayan, and Arawak, welcomed Columbus and his men. They offered food, fresh water, and gifts to the newcomers.
The crew was surprised by the simple way the local people lived. They wore little clothing, used simple tools, and fished in the clear waters. Columbus saw the land as rich and full of possibilities. He claimed it for Spain by placing a Spanish flag on the shore. He told his crew that the land now belonged to Spain's king and queen.
Columbus believed the people he met could be good workers. He thought they could help Spain by providing resources and labor. For Columbus, this was just the beginning of exploring and claiming new lands.
After claiming the land, Columbus wanted to build a settlement. He believed Spain could grow rich if they set up a base here. Columbus and his men started working on small buildings where they could live and store supplies. He hoped the settlement would become a center for more exploration and trade.
But things did not go smoothly. The men faced many challenges. At first, the local people were friendly and helped them, but soon there were problems. The settlers wanted more food and supplies than the island could give, which led to tension. Some of the settlers did not respect the local people or their way of life. This caused arguments and misunderstandings.
Columbus also made some of the locals work for him, hoping they could help find gold and other resources. However, this was not easy, as the local people did not want strangers taking control of their land and resources.
Fighting and sickness made life in the settlement very hard. Many men grew tired, hungry, and even angry. Columbus tried to keep order, but it was difficult. He saw that creating a new life here would be much harder than he thought. Still, he hoped that the settlement would bring success to Spain in the future.
After setting up the settlement, Columbus decided to return to Spain to tell the king and queen about the new lands. He wanted to share news of the islands, the people he had met, and the resources he thought Spain could use. He described the land's beauty, the strange plants and animals, and the people who lived there. He promised there would be gold and other riches if Spain continued to explore these lands.
The king and queen were pleased with Columbus's report. They agreed to support more journeys, hoping to find the wealth Columbus talked about. Columbus became famous as the man who found new lands across the ocean. Spain wanted to keep exploring, and soon many other Europeans heard about this new world. This began a great period of exploration.
Columbus's journey had a big impact. It started what is called the Columbian Exchange, which was the trade of plants, animals, goods, and ideas between Europe and the Americas. This exchange changed life on both sides of the ocean. Foods like tomatoes, potatoes, and corn traveled to Europe, while horses, cows, and new tools reached the Americas. Columbus's journey changed the world in ways he could never have imagined. Many people remember him as a brave explorer who opened new paths across the ocean. He showed that long journeys by sea were possible, and he connected Europe and the Americas.
But Columbus's actions also had difficult effects. For the native people of the Americas, his arrival brought big changes and many challenges. They lost much of their land and freedom, and their way of life was forever changed. Today, some people honor Columbus for his discoveries, while others remember the struggles of the native people.
Columbus's story is complex. It includes both achievements and mistakes. His life reminds us that exploration can bring both good and harm. When we look back at history, it helps us learn and understand different sides. Columbus's journeys started a new age, and his legacy is still felt in our world today. And that brings us to the end of today's episode on Columbus's incredible journey. We've traveled through his dreams, challenges, and the big changes he brought to the world. Columbus showed that following a dream can change history, but his story also reminds us to think about the effects of exploration on others.
Thank you for joining us here at Lingo Dots Podcasts. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe for more stories from history and beyond. We'll be back with more exciting journeys and tales that have shaped our world. See you next time.